Everybody, Bennett for the Bennett Podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 2025 Team Guides. We're going through every team available in Blood Bowl Season 3, and we're looking at the players, we're looking at the changes, and we're looking at what you can run if you go to your shop and pick up a box of that team. So, it's time to talk about Dwarves. Dwarves got what I think are probably the biggest changes to any team in this edition. And it's an interesting one. They've lost some really key skills. They've lost some really key skill access. They've even lost a little bit of agility. They've gained a couple of other things though. So we're going to go through each player and have a look and find out if the total is good or bad. All right, so Dwarfy Dwarfs. Yes, do you know what? If you're watching this video, you're either going to find out as we go along what's happened to Dwarves, or you already know and want to know what we think about it. So the Dwarf team, 0 to 8 rerolls, 60k a piece, a little bit on the pricey side. I've got them down at tier 2, but it really doesn't matter. They can take an apothecary. Now, cool couple of things. They've got World's Edge Super League for access to inducements and star players, and they've got Brawling Brutes and Bribery and Corruption. So Brawling Brutes here, I think, is a really cool thing for the Dwarf team to have received. That basically means in a game, if you score a touchdown, you get 2 SPP, 2 star player points instead of 3. And if you cause a casualty, you get 3 SPP instead of 2. That is going to help speed up development for a traditionally bash team. There's a few teams that have got this, and I think it's a really cool way of kind of jazzing up how teams develop. So we do like that. And the fact they've got Bribery and Corruption is pretty cool too. So that means they're going to get cheaper bribes. And once per game, with a team with this special rule rolls in 1 to argue the cool, they may re-roll the d6. Now you might be thinking, why, Ben? Well, there's 2 things about Dwarves that have kind of changed now. They've got access to the devious skills. So this Dwarf team used to be about block, tackle, guard, and just becoming this shield wall. The shield wall is no more. The shield wall is no more when it comes to Dwarves. Dwarves are more about the spiky shoes, so it's a really interesting one. And of course they've got the big old death roller as well, which is still a secret weapon. So the fact they've got Bribery and Corruption to purchase cheaper bribes and re-roll that 1 on an argue, it is actually going to help them take the death roller and makes the death roller potentially a little bit more choosy. I'm not sold on the death roller entirely, but that's okay. Right, let's hit the roster. So 0 to 16 Dwarf Lineman. They've lost tackle, but they've gained defensive. So block tackle Dwarves, I don't want to say was a problem, because it was just a universal constant, but it was quite potent, shall we say. And it just meant that there were some matchups that the Dwarves just absolutely feasted on. Like historically, Dwarves versus Goblins, Dwarves versus Amazons. My team skill just turns your team skill off, and I've got block, and it just became a pretty bloody affair. So, defensive, the Dwarves have now got, during your opponent's turns, opposition players marked by this player cannot use the guard or put the boot in skills. Put the boot in is guard for fouling. So it's almost a free skill. So the kind of way to think about this is that Dwarves lost tackle, but they got that free skill in that the opponent can't really use guard against most of their linemen. And they've got the ability to punch things in the face. Now the standard stuff for Dwarves haven't changed. The stats really haven't changed, with it one exception. So it just means they've lost tackle, but they've gained defensive. Dwarf runners have got sprint now. I'm not sure they had sprint before. I don't think they had sprint before. Now their passing skill's gone down a little bit. We'll talk about that in a second. But now the dwarf runner has sprint. And you know what? He's a runner. And dwarves, as we all know, are deadly over short distances. The Dwarf Blitzer. This one is an interesting one. The Dwarf Blitzer was a really great positional. It was slow at movement 5, and it's still movement 5. But the Blitzer was a solid positional. It was a solid choice, and it was a well-respected player. It's now Ag 4+, which means it's really just a fast dwarf lineman with a ton of cool skills. It's got tackle, which it didn't have before, and it's got diving tackle, which nobody has, I think. I'll tell you what, because we're going to look at diving tackle, we are going to have a look at the skill because it's not a commonly used skill. So, diving tackle. When an opposing player attempts to leave this player's tackle zone as a result of a dodge, leap, or jump, After the agility test has been rolled and any modifiers and rerolls have been applied, this player may use this skill, immediately apply a -2 modifier to the opponent's agility test, place this player prone in the square the opposition player vacated. If a player tries to leave the tackle zone of multiple players, only one can use it at a time. So basically, if somebody dodges away from your Dwarf Blitzer, not only do you have tackle, so they can't use dodge, but after they've rolled, you can go, I tap 2 blue mana, tap my Dwarf Blitzer, and make your dice 2 less, which is, in most circumstances, likely to make that dodge fail, which is going to cause a turnover. So that's a pretty useful set of skills. It is not what they're used to, and it's not what the team is used to, but actually it's a pretty cool one. Now, it's going to leave your player prone when you are low movement. That's not ideal. But at least you've got a couple of players there that have access to tackle so that they can pick off dodgy targets. And that diving tackle means that when there's a Dwarf Blitzer on somebody you're trying to run away with, it's going to be hard to dodge away, which is good. The Troll Slayer remains unchanged. You can take 0 to 2, although they do have now the Hatred for Trolls skill. Hatred is a new skill for this edition. You can't get it on a skill up. You can only get it by being forced to miss a next game as a result of a casualty. So you can only get Hatred by getting hurt. The Troll Slayer starts with it. He really hates trolls because he troll slays. He slays trolls, does the Troll Slayer. How many trolls would the Troll Slayer slay? And then you've got the Death Roller, which is a very interesting positional. You may never use it, but it looks quite fun. Okay, so the Dwarf Lineman lost his tackle. Movement 4, Strength 3, Edge 4+, Passing 5+, Armor 10+, Block, Defensive, Thick Skull. Dwarf Linemen are potentially the ultimate lineman. They are potentially the best positional player to put on a line of scrimmage. The fact they start with block and they've got thick skull and armor 10 means that if your opponent can hit them, they have to curtail that block skill. They have to, land a pow or a dodge star. And if they can do that, you've still got armor 10+. And if they can do that, they've still got thick skull. So on the roll of an 8, that KO just becomes a stunned. Now, the downside of this is that they're movement 4. So anytime a dwarf goes to the ground, they're getting up and moving one many squares, which is not brilliant for dwarves. And Edge 4+ means that they're not the most likely to be able to redeploy. They're not the most likely to pick up the ball on the run. But there's a new action in this edition of Blood Bowl called Secure the Ball, which means a player can wander over to the ball, and as long as there's not an opposition player within 2 squares of the ball, they can secure it on a 2+ instead of an agility roll, which really does help Dwarf Linemen. Now, you're not really supposed to want to pick up the ball with a movement 4 piece because it is oftentimes going to be a very long walk to the end zone. A very long walk. But there's only 2 Edge 3+ players on this entire roster. So I think you need to dust out the rulebook and check the Secure the Ball skill because your Dwarf Lineman might be doing it. But what that does mean, it's a block player. So you've got a chance to secure the ball and then keep it secure, I suppose. Right, skills-wise, the big burner is they've lost access to strength skills. They've got strength on a secondary, and in this edition, that's 10 SPP, not 12 SPP. But it's also not 6 SPP. Now, they've got access to devious skills and general skills, and those can be a random at 3 SPP, which is going to be 1 casualty, remember, because they've got Brawn and Brutes, or 6 SPP to choose a skill. And this is where I think the way dwarves are brewed up and operated is going to be the fundamentally most different. Dwarves become a real bloody mess because they tend to, historically, you've got that block, you've got tackle, so you're making profitable blocks most of the time and oftentimes by yourself with 1 dice. Then they get a little skill up at some point and you put a bit of guard on them, so it just means that your other dwarves are then making 2 dice profitable blocks. And then maybe someone takes Mighty Blow because actually it's even more fun to remove your opponent's players than it is to just put them on the ground. So that was kind of how dwarves worked. Now, that strength stuff is later, and I will just say that even though there is now 10 SPP to get access to strength, you're a dwarf. You're brewing up SPP faster than you were before, and on top of that, your armor 10+ with thick skull. You're probably going to be able to get it. I think what we're going to see in this edition is 2 different things with dwarves. Someone's going to go turbo skill with my Dwarf Lineman and take random devious skills to just kind of stunty around and put the boot in. Or the patient dwarves are just going to wait a little bit longer to 10 SPP, a couple of casualties and an MVP. And you're still going to end up playing against some fun, strength-based dwarf linemen. And this is only the linemen. Right, I do not want to curtail this because I think it's really important. So, the devious skills. I think there's some fun stuff in here. So, devious, dirty player, +1 to fouling. Eye gouge, Fumblerooski, no. Lethal flight can't be used. Lone fowler. So, lone fowler is an interesting one. If you take lone fowler on a player and there's no assists when you're fouling, you can re-roll the armor roll. So, you know, you don't break armor the first time round, you get another go at it. That is very likely to break the armor of most things. Aisle driver could be really fun on these players as well. You block, you knock them down because you're a dwarf and you've got the block skill. You try and break the armor, you don't break the armor, and then you get the chance to just place yourself prone and take an armor break chance via a foul immediately. So that's already 2 skills where your dwarf linemen, who are pretty effective blockers, have the chance to roll twice on armor. That's pretty good too. Put the boot in is basically guard for fouling. Quick foul, it's not ideal for a movement 4 piece, but you can foul and then run away. Saboteur, doesn't matter. Shadowing has changed in this edition and now just works on a 4+. So actually, it's not the worst. You can still then, you know, especially if you're in a high edge matchup, you know what it's like. You put your dwarves on the line, your dark elf, elfin union, wood elf player just goes 2+ dodge away, 2+ dodge away, 2+ dodge away. Well, actually, 4+, I follow you, and you have to do it again. There's some stuff there. Sneaky git is where you get you basically, if you don't break the armor but you roll a double on a foul, you don't get sent off. And Violet Innovator, you can't get anyway. So while it is not the guard, mighty blow, tackle spam that it used to be, dwarves, if you want to succeed, you can either be patient and brew up to guard, or you can kind of try the new dwarf fouling meta. Okay, so we mentioned that there's only 2 players on this roster with Edge 3+. And this is both of them. So 0 to 2 dwarf runners. And I think if you are playing dwarves, it is going to be 2 to 2 dwarf runners. You are going to need these guys. Movement 6 is very fast on this dwarf team. Strength 3 is fine. Edge 3+ is very agile on this dwarf team. Passing 4+ I think got a little bit worse. And you've lost the pass skill. But as we said when we looked at the Khemri roster, Tomb King, sorry, who is the thrower throwing to? In fact, these dwarves, it's a runner. So he's just running. Armor 9+ is actually quite resilient for a runner ball carrying positional. 80k is okay. Sprint means that this runner can actually run. Sprint allows you to rush or go for it 3 times instead of 2. So that movement 6 is actually movement 9 as long as you don't roll 1s. That's okay. Movement 9 is wicked. So dwarves kind of like punch, fight, secure, eat stuff, block. And then at some point your dwarf runner breaks through, and once they get 9 squares from the end zone, you've got a chance to score quite quickly, which is quite interesting to me. So sure hands gives you a better chance to pick up the ball, and with 6 movement, actually you kind of get that little bit of mobility. Sure hands is the skill that in this edition I think is going to be really useful for second half shenanigans, right? The ball is loose. That sure hands gives you a chance at a 4+ pickup with a reroll, a 5+ pickup with a reroll. It just gives you the chance to get that ball. Secure the ball gives you the option at movement 6. Actually, there may be times where you're just like, I'm just going to go over there and take a 2+. 3+ with a reroll is often better. In fact, I think it's just mathematically better, but it gives you that option. Thick Skull is going to keep him around as well. General and passing, look. Block is a great skill, and when you've got a player that is movement 6, edge 3+, with sure hands, this player is primed to be a fast blitzer. Armor 9+ is the same as most other blitzers. So actually your dwarf runner here is going to be your star blitzer when you give him block. Now you've got passing access, but there's no one to throw to, and you're only passing 4+. So I'm afraid that the throwing dwarf dream, well, it's not gone, but it's a little further away than it used to be. Block on your dwarf runner, you've got a movement 6 edge 3+ blitzer. Kind of how this team is looking like being played. You've got the runners kind of become your new blitzers. You've got the blitzers who kind of become these new super linemen. It's an interesting one. You've still got access to strength in the long run. The best thing you can potentially do with that is save up, and then if you do try to brew up your runners into some kind of blitzer, you can take a bit of mighty blow, or you can take break tackle and give yourself a cheeky 2+ dodge into the open with your movement 9 dwarf. All right, so the blitzer The Blitzer got a raw end here, actually. This guy now being Edge 4+, takes him away from being the other guy that can get the ball, and it was really quite a fun way to run Dwarves. Now your Dwarf Blitzer is a movement 5 lineman. Dwarf linemen are pretty resilient. Armor 10+, strength 3, yep. Thick skull, yep. They're pretty consistent. Block is very useful too. Now, these guys being slightly faster at movement 5, having tackle and diving tackle, they kind of become your star lineman is sort of where I see the Dwarf Blitzers being. You're not going to be using them, I think, so much to anchor the line, but they do have strength access, which can be really useful. I've already got tackle. Now, what we're seeing is tackle being given to a lot of Blitzers takes away the mental strain of going, okay, I've got to level up. Do I want Mighty Blow or do I want tackle as a safety? Okay, I've got 2 Dwarf Blitzers. If you're placing against an Edge team with some dodge, you can keep your Blitzers loose and you can apply them to the right target. Diving tackle and tackle is really going to mess up somebody's day. And when you want to punch them, block and tackle is really going to mess up somebody's day. So there's real potential here with the Dwarf Blitzer. The fact that they get general and strength, strength is going to be the one you want here. You've already been free rolled tackle, so the real question is going to be, do you want to take Mighty Blow or do you want to take Guard? And there's a cool thing here which I don't think has massively changed. Guard on your Blitzer, Mighty Blow on your Troll Slayer. Your Troll Slayer is going to have that inherent 2 shots at a hit, so there's actually a really good little slow but good combo still at hunting in packs. But there is also the option that these are going to be your fastest guard pieces, and with block armor 10+ and thick skull, they can survive the line of scrimmage. So actually being able to place your Dwarf Blitzers in the line of scrimmage and use that guard to just help everybody else out from a block point of view, is going to really help, because the more better blocks you make, the more casualties you're going to get, and that's the quicker the rest of your team brews up. There is still a path here to guard Mighty Blow shenanigans for Dwarves. It's just a different one. But the Troll Slayer has remained unchanged, which is excellent because everybody loves the Troll Slayer. So movement 5, fast for a Dwarf. Well, it's fine. Strength 3, Edge 4+, passing 5+. Are you serious for a Troll Slayer? And armor 9+, so he's a little bit on the fragile side for a Dwarf. It's really funny when you roll, 5+, yeah. When you roll, when you're running up against a Troll Slayer, you want to target him because he's often the softest target. Block, thick skull, armor 9+ is basically the softest target on this roster. So your Dwarf Slayers may get picked on a bit more. But 95k, block, dauntless, frenzy, hatred for trolls, and thick skull. They are a wonderful positional, and the Dwarf team has kind of gone away a little bit from consistency to a little bit of bloodthirstiness. Maybe you put the boot in a little bit more with your lineman, and you want to punch stuff more with your Troll Slayer. General and strength access. When it comes to general, you've got tackle on both your Blitzers now. This is going to be very much along the lines of, do I want Strip Ball to be fancy, or do I just want to take Mighty Blow and make every one of my frenzy shots hit? It's a bit of a no-brainer. The cool thing, though, is they do have Devious, and we did already talk about Pile Driver. Now, this is not necessarily a good idea or a consistently wise idea, but there's a fun loop here that goes Troll Slayer, Mighty Blow into Devious Pile Driver, which could be really funny just to be that ultimate removal tool, because that's basically what your Slayers are going to be doing. And I can see you running all your Slayers before you run all your Blitzers. The Blitzer used to have the edge when it came to Edge. Now the Troll Slayer doesn't have to compete in the Edge market. It's the same speed and the same agility as your Blitzer, but he's got Dauntless and Frenzy. So, I don't know. I think the Troll Slayer, cheeky bit of Mighty Blow, a brutal positional. Okay, it's Death Roller time. So, a very interesting positional, this one. Movement 5, Strength 7, Edge 5+, passing, no passing at all. He's too busy. Can't even have the ball. He's got armor 11 here. Break tackle, dirty player, juggernaut, loner 4+, mighty blow, no ball, secret weapon, stand firm. That's a ton of skills. Stand firm makes sense. It's a big old chunky beast. No ball. He's too busy driving the death roller, so he can't catch the ball, which means he can't throw it either. So it doesn't matter that he doesn't have passing ability. Right. Where do you even start with this? Strength 7 is fantastic. For the most part, that's going to give you a 3-die block on most targets, which is absolutely brilliant. So he's got a couple of different things. When you're blitzing with him, you've got Juggernaut, which turns that 3-die block into a 3-die blitz, which you can then take the both downs and turn them into pushes for just a little bit of a more consistent way of doing it. The real key here for me, though, is yes, he's got Dirty Player, so he gets +1 to fouling. That can be quite good, especially if you get Put the Boot in or a Dwarf Lineman to just kind of make it Dirty Player +2. That is quite egregious. Lone is going to hurt you. Mighty Blow makes a lot of sense. You're going to be blocking stuff and wanting to murder things. But the real one for here is the fact that he got Break Tackle. And Break Tackle in this edition got better. So Strength 3 or less +1 to a dodge. Strength 4 +2 to a dodge. Strength 5 or more +3 to a dodge. So this Death Roller at movement 5 with Juggernaut and Strength 7 and Mighty Blow can wander into the open on a 5-4-3 2+. Which is wicked. Like, that now means your Death Roller can pretty reliably maneuver around. Now, he's got Lone of 4+, so that 1 for the dodge is still going to massively hurt you, but it's still a really cool little bonus. Now, 170k is a monstrous amount, and trying to fit him into a roster is going to be a more of a life choice than a roster decision. So while I do like the Death Roller, and he is imposing and terrifying and such a good Games Workshop model, you're paying 170k for a big guy that has Lone of 4+, that with Secret Weapon, he's only going to be around for 1 drive. Now, the team's got cheap bribes now, absolutely, and you can re-roll and argue the call on a 1. But that kind of means that if it's 220k for this with a bribe, and that is a monstrous amount for a player that can just go and skull himself out. Mighty Blow is great with Strength 7, don't get me wrong. Juggernaut means when he's blitzing around and he's got Break Tackle so he can do it into the open on a 2+ is cool, which means he can also do some element of cage diving a little bit. It's a cool player. I will forever maintain that the Death Roller should have ball and chain so that he just drives around erratically and just multiple blocks people. But you've got a Death Roller. It's a very cool model. It's a very cool idea. There's some fun skills you can combo up. He's got Strength and Devious on a primary, so you can do the stand firm shenanigans. You can do, he's already got Break Tackle, so you could look at Brawler where you can save up to 10 SPP and take block on him. But it's a Secret Weapon player that you're going to struggle with. So there's some cool stuff you can do with it, but it's super expensive. And as you're about to find out, the whole Dwarf roster is super expensive. But you may love Dwarves, and let's face it, from a fantasy wargaming point of view, there is something super special about Dwarves. And the box is all right, although you've got to glue those stupid little blocks into the back of the Dwarfs. That's annoying. Other than that, the team actually looks pretty good fun. So you go and you pick up 1 box of Dwarfs. This is what I would recommend to get that Dwarf experience. 6 Dwarf Linemen, 2 Dwarf Runners, 1 Dwarf Blitzer, and 2 Troll Slayers with 2 rerolls. Now, it comes to 990k, so you can actually swap out a Slayer for a Blitzer. And that's going to be where, that's going to be your primary decision here, is do I run 2 Slayers or 2 Blitzers? Or do I go down to 1 reroll and still not, you know, and then drop a Lineman and then take a second Dwarf Blitzer? You've got very little in the way of people who can do anything with the ball, so I would be reluctant to go below 2 rerolls. I would rather take both the Slayers than both the Blitzers. I think you can add another Blitzer later on and it will be okay. It's a really interesting one. I don't think you want to sacrifice a runner, and even if you do, with some creative accounting, it doesn't really make up for the fact that the Blitzers are 100k now. And where they're Edge 4+, you may look at this and go, oh, you know, where's my second Dwarf Blitzer? Well, they're Edge 4+ now, and quite frankly, if I was given the choice, do you want a block frenzy piece that's the same movement and the same and has the same combat ability with strength, and he's got Dauntless as well? The Slayers are just such a strong piece. Now, they are swingy because they're frenzy, and this roster is less of a guard heavy place, but I think this is a good place to start with. But you know, your mileage may vary, but there's not a huge amount you can do different when it comes to accounting for the Dwarf team. They got a bit more expensive, they got a bit more limited, but I think this is probably the most fun you can have with 1 box. All right, so Dwarves in this edition, do let me know what you think in the comments below. Block tackle Dwarves, there was a running, not a running joke, but a running acceptance that that is a tough matchup. Now block tackle dwarves have gone. They've lost a bit of agility. Their skill up is going to be a different route, but I still think that the runners, I think the runners are looking pretty good now. Sprint, movement 9 dwarf runners. Still got 2 troll slayers. That's pretty wicked. And your dwarf lineman there with a skill access difference. If you take into consideration the fact that they've got brawling brutes, they were not really getting touchdowns before anyway, so they might actually advance quicker, but now the strength stuff is on a secondary. You can still take some fun bits when it comes to fouling, but I think dwarves will be okay, just not quite as potent out of the box as they used to be. But let me know what you think, because this is probably the most divisive roster in this edition of Blood Bowl. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I still wish the death roll had been made a bit cheaper, because I'd love it to be an auto pick, but it just isn't. It's just too expensive. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking.